Okay, so my name is Stephanie Schreiber. I work in the Office of Undergraduate Research. For those of you who haven't met me, that's who I am. For those of you who have, hello, welcome back. So this is effectively the first session in the Undergraduate Research Education Series virtual fall 2020. So we're very happy to see all of your little faces. Not because you were little people, but because the little squares are so small.
I thought about that actually when you said that. Oh, your little faces. I'm like,
The squares are just so small. I have to like lean in and get real close. Maybe that just means I need glasses. In any case, this session is on giving and receiving helpful feedback. Dr. Louie has given the session before. It's really, really helpful. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to sit through it again. So welcome and take it away.
Awesome. First and foremost, Crystal and Melina, if you can, do you mind turning on your video? As you can imagine, this is less interactive than normal, and even less interactive if I can't sort of see your faces, then I really do feel like I'm talking to my computer screen. Thank you so much. Thank you. There will be times where I will ask you to unmute, so be ready, and let's take them up there. So let me see if I can share my screen. All right, can everybody see that? See, this is another place where it's really helpful to have everyone actually on video so that I could see this. Great. So let's get started. Feedback. Well, first of all, I want you to picture, if you will, I have to go back to this. Okay, picture, if you will, I'm in graduate school. I'm newly graduated undergraduate. I started my doctorate in chemistry, which is what I have. I worked for, can you guys actually all see my mouse as well too? Yes, okay, good. The pointer on this Zoom thing is really weird and it lags, so I'm glad you can see my mouse. Okay, so that's me right there. Fresh-faced, eager, excited graduate student working in a laboratory trying to get my PhD. And it is my second year and it's time for oral examinations. And so picture, if you will, I'm in a room with 4 other chemistry professors, including my chemistry advisor right there. And we're about to do my second year PhD oral examination. And I'm confident, I've been preparing for this. I know my stuff. I go in and I start my presentation and I present my results and I'm going and I'm going. And immediately I start getting bombarded with questions. And not only do I get bombarded with questions, most of those questions are coming from my own PhD advisor, my boss, the person I work for, the person who I've gone in depth with all of the data. And he starts saying, what does the data mean? Why does that graph look that way? Did you try it without its salts? What conclusions have you, I mean, question after question after question. And perhaps not surprisingly, I start to feel attacked. I am feeling overwhelmed a little bit and just really just shocked that my own research advisor, who I went into in depth with the answers of these questions, is now grilling me on these questions. And so I, not surprisingly, afterwards, feel a little run down after this oral examination. And I really, although I passed the examination, I feel a little in the need for positive feedback. And so I go into his office and I ask, can I have some feedback on my oral presentation? And rather than take that as a sign, although it was a very subtle sign, rather than take that as a sign that I need positive reinforcement, my graduate advisor proceeds to go on an entire list of what I should have changed. Well, you could have done this, your slide should have looked like this, your graph could have been more linear, you had a bigger font of this, and all of the things that I could have done differently and better. Needless to say, I leave his office feeling quite broken, but I chalk it up as a necessary growing pain of graduate school. That's just part of the package, and this is what needs to happen when you try to earn a PhD. But if we think to ourselves, does it really have to be this way? And that's really the focus of this talk. What could have made this whole exercise more effective, more productive? And which of the two of us could have made more productive changes? So let's start with me. Let's start with what I could have done differently. How could I have optimized my experience for getting feedback? And let's talk about what we should do about when we are about to receive feedback. Now, remember that our whole lives we get feedback. From the moment we are born, we are getting feedback. Oh, that's such a cute laugh. Oh no, please don't cry, please don't cry. Right? We're constantly getting feedback. And as a child, we use it to learn how to function in society, right? We learn, okay, if I want to learn how to walk, I have to put one, our parents are like, okay, one foot, balance, great, right? And so you're like, okay, I'm walking, or okay, this is how you hold a spoon. No, you don't put it in your ear, you put it in your mouth, right? No, food goes in the mouth, not all over your face. So we have constantly gotten feedback our entire lives. And when we were little, the difference is when we were little, we didn't take that feedback and use it to define our self-worth. But however, as we grow older, we start letting feedback affect our emotions. For example, if you get feedback that is negative, we start feeling bad about ourselves. If you get positive feedback, you start feeling good about yourselves. Can I get if again, maybe unmute. Everyone's like, has anyone ever felt bad when they got negative feedback? Just say I.
I.
Good. Okay. And then on the flip side, if random person says, "Oh, I really like your sweater," you feel good. How many times has that happened to you guys? Not how many times. If that's happened to you, say I. Good, right? So as we grow older, it's human nature. We have feedback. When we receive feedback, we let it affect how we feel. But when we do that, and as we change this perception that feedback we allow it to affect how we feel, what we're doing is we're changing our response to it, and we're not necessarily using that feedback to grow, to change, to evolve. And that's really what it was there in the beginning. And remember, as humans, one of our essential things of life is feeling like we've grown, feeling like we've evolved. That is, in fact, there's a saying growth equals happiness. If you don't feel like you're progressing, then you're going to be really upset. So it's not necessarily achieving a goal that makes you feel happy. It's that you are learning, you're progressing, you're getting better. And so feedback is really important for that. Just think back to maybe a coach you had that was really great, a music teacher, a professor or something. Now, it's important for them to give us feedback if we want to get better. Now, if our coach only ever said, "Great job, your running is super fast, I love your stride," or "The way you play that music is perfect, everything is perfect, so good," would we improve? No, because we wouldn't know what to change, what to improve. So the coaches, for us to get feedback, that's really there for us to get better. And so we have to have a guide. If we want to get better, we have to know what we need to change in order to get better. And so, of course, how that information is delivered, which will be covered later in the presentation, is going to affect how we respond to that feedback. But we have the control to be able to manage our emotions and to respond to that feedback as well too. And the big thing to remember is that we all need people who give us feedback, and that's how we improve. And what I love is the saying of thinking feedback is a gift. And really the thing I want to underline, because you can all read, is that the F, right? It's for you. It's not about you. It's for you. And so we're all here, right? You're all at a university. If you're here, and don't forget that you probably want to graduate, you probably want to get a job, that we need to get feedback in order to achieve the goals that you set for yourself. So how do you do that? How do you prepare yourself for feedback? Well, a great way to do this is priming yourself. What is prime yourself? Because our natural tendency is to feel feedback, that feedback defines our self-worth, we have to be extra diligent to prime ourselves to be in the right mindset to receive that feedback. And priming is a way you can do it. Priming is a way for you to change your mindset. One way to define priming is taking time to adjust your thoughts and emotions so that you can be in your peak state, really maximize your ability to get that feedback. It's useful for mastering your emotions and it gives you a moment to just take a breath. And so the psychology of priming is a phenomenon in which a person is exposed to a stimulus, so the first stimulus, and then that relates to a second stimulus. So for example, if you hear the word sun and I say, what's the next word you might say? You might say moon, because we've been primed to link the sun and the moon together, right? All our lives, stars, sun, moon. So you might have said stars, you might have said sky, but all of that is in the same schema or group. And so we've already been primed for that. And so priming yourself is having an initial stimulus relate to a second stimulus. And as you can imagine, a negative priming will set us up for a negative reaction, and a positive priming will set us up for a positive priming. Now, I want you to guys think back to yourself at a time when you felt really, really angry, like just so pissed off, right? Someone did something and you're like, this is just awful. Ask yourself, look back and think, okay, did I really make the best decisions when I felt that angry? How many of you guys, again, say, unmute yourself, ever can think of a time where you were so angry and then you responded to it, and then later you're like, that's probably not the best thing I should have done? I mean, for me, it's like, no? Did I hear a no? Wow, that's awesome, right? So, being angry primes yourself for a negative response. Now I want you to think back to yourself and think what a time where you were just so happy. Maybe you were in love, right? You're like, oh, he's so cute, or she's just amazing. We went to the movies, and then having that feeling, and then you did something really, really outstanding, really special, just really amazing, that now you can still even look back and go, wow, that was awesome. I'm really proud of what I did. Anyone? Yeah. Good, right? So those emotions prime you to make decisions, for better or for worse, but that first stimulus sets you up. I think, again, too, of maybe you're out and about, someone cuts you off, and you're driving to school and you're like, I'm gonna be late for that exam, right? You're probably not going to be as do well on that exam as you could have if you didn't let your anger take hold of you. So that's really what priming is about. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. Technical difficulties. All right. So how do you know, I want you to think of yourself, how many of you guys have ever about to be given feedback, whether it's an exam that you're getting back or a report, and you're like, oh my, you're freaking out, right? You're like, right? You feel things like you're sweaty and your heart's racing a little bit because you don't know what the grade's going to be, or you have to go talk to your boss and your palms are sticky, and you're or maybe the night before you haven't been able to sleep, you have all this pent up energy. Anything? Yes. Okay, well, this is my gif, if you will, of fear from the movie. What was the movie called now?
Inside.
I think of Inside Out. Thank you so much. Yes, the feelings, right? So he represents fear, right? All that elevated heart rate, sweatiness, can't sleep, pent up energy. So these might be the feelings we are feeling right before we get feedback. The beautiful thing about this is that, I'm going to ask you a question. Did you know that all of those physical attributes, sweatiness, energy, heartbeat, can't sleep, are the exact same symptoms, physical symptoms, as excitement and joy. Right. So, right. Because again, think about when you are excited, you're like, oh, I have all this energy. I can't wait. I'm a little nervous of this roller coaster or whatever it is. And so our body actually responds to both fear and excitement the exact same way. And so it's our mind that is the sole factor that differentiates fear from excitement. So the nice thing is that rather, right, while your body is doing what it normally is going to do, you can choose to call it, oh, I'm afraid, or I'm so excited, I'm getting feedback, yes, right? So the language that you use is really important here. And this is what one of the things I say in my organic chemistry classes, analogy is, this is a little dated because how many of you have you guys heard of the skier Lindsey Vonn? No? Okay. Let's see, who's an amazing athlete? I mean, I think of Simone Biles because like I love gymnastics and she's awesome. Simone Biles, yeah? Right? Okay, good. Whew. Yes, gymnast, awesome. Okay, because she's fantastic, right? I mean, the stuff that she does, like, what human can flip like that? That's like ridiculous, right? I mean, especially if you think about like she's propelling herself up in the air, twisting, flipping, everything. There's a lot that can go wrong, like death, right? I mean, if she lands wrong, it's just over, right? So do you think that she, before she starts her tumbling pass or her vault or whatever it is, she is, right? Oh my goodness, I'm so afraid this is going to suck. I'm going to land on my head and it's going to be awful. Yes. No, right? She's like, I got this. No one's done this before, but I got this. I'm going to flip. It's going to be another gymnastics movement named after me, Biles, right? That's what she's telling herself, even though she is probably a little nervous, maybe a lot, sweaty, pent up energy. So the language that you tell yourself is super important, and that's really going to dictate whether you feel fear or excitement. And so part of doing that is remembering that whatever feedback you get is separate from your identity, right? It's simply helping you, allow you to manage growth in one of your traits. And it's not directed at all to your self-worth. So while you're feeling, I'm super excited, also tell yourself that it's not about you, it's for you. Now, again, if we think about this, we're just talking about Simone Biles. Let's think about if someone says to you, or to someone like, oh, that triple double was just, really wasn't very high, and it was low, right? She's like, okay, well, now I'll get it higher. Let's say, but if we think of an athlete, I'm not gonna bring Simone Biles back because I don't want this to happen to her, right? Like, let's say you're an athlete and you get injured, like to the point where you can't compete anymore in that sport. Does that make you no longer athletic, competitive, right? No, you still are. So the traits, your identity is still there, regardless of what it is that that we're giving feedback on. So the feedback you get doesn't define your identity. And once you've done that, also to remember to check yourself, right? Check ego at the door, right? Ego, unfortunately, is inversely proportional to knowledge. And it's really natural for us to get defensive, right? Like you get the feedback and you're like, oh, I don't do that. No, but that's not what I meant. And well, clearly it says here that I answered your question, right? So, so check ego at the door and really allow yourself to be open to that feedback. And that will then give you the tools, if you will. So that's right. The feedback, evaluate strengths and weaknesses to actually then put it in a loop to get better, self-reflect. How can I change this, right? You can't change anything unless you get that feedback to understand what there is to change. And so really reflecting and thinking, could I have done better? Well, maybe I couldn't, but now I know what the feedback is and I know what to change. And so I can do something about it. And this will really facilitate you having a growth mindset. What is a growth mindset? At the heart of it, it's believing that you can get better. Now, it's different than a fixed mindset, and I'm stealing this from this amazing social psychologist, Carol Dweck, who really did a lot of studies of fixed and growth mindset. Fixed mindset, that's the opposite, right? That's having the belief that you are born with a defined level of an innate level of intelligence, of natural talent, and you have X capacity. And as you can imagine, when you believe that, then it's impossible to grow, right? You're done. You're born with what you're born with. And so a growth mindset really is much more, I can change, I can become better, I can learn. And what this really impacted me in the sense that when I first heard about this is, how many of you guys have ever heard someone say, oh my goodness, that person is so talented, right? They run so fast. They're so talented, right? Good, right? And what's awful about that is that when you say that, you really minimize all the hard work that they've really done, right? So Michael Jordan is a classic example, right? Thought of as one of the best basketball players in history. That dude worked his off, right? Insane. But if you say, oh, well, he's just gifted, he was born athletic and so talented, right? You completely minimize all the hard work. And that's not to say that we're all that everybody isn't born with different amounts of innate talent to begin with. But having a fixed mindset is, okay, that's it, and I can't get better. But growth mindset is, I'm born with what I'm born with, but if I put in enough hard work, I can get better. And what I love about this too is, we're all in college, we want our brains to be active. And if you have a growth mindset, studies have actually shown that it increases brain activity. So I'm going to play a little clip from Carol Dweck herself. Let's see if I can. Okay, good. Showing you the data that shows how much more active your brain is from a growth mindset. Uh-oh.
On our end, we can't hear the clip. I can see it, but I can't hear anything.
Oh no. Okay. So, but you can see it, right? Okay, so I'll paraphrase. Now I have to try to be as eloquent as Carol Dweck. So on the left, so this is a picture of someone with a fixed mindset on the left and someone with a growth mindset on the right. And what they're given, right, what the experiment was, is they were both given a problem that challenged them. So it was hard for them. And red is a lot of activity, green, closer to blue is like very little activity. And what you can see from the left is the one who has the fixed mindset, there's not a whole lot of brain activity. Whereas the one with the growth mindset, there's a lot, right? Remember, both of them have been given a problem that is challenging to them. So what I conclude from this, right, is that the growth mindset person is thinking, oh my goodness, this is hard. I really have to engage and focus on this and use my brain to try to find a solution. The person on the left with a fixed mindset is, if I had to put words in their mouth, I don't know exactly what they're thinking, but looking at this graph, this low energy is, oh my goodness, this is hard. I don't know. I can't do this. This is just too hard. I'll wait till time is up and then maybe they'll tell me the answer, right? I mean, fair assessment, right? So right, you guys are here. I would imagine that you right, the whole reason why you're in college is you want your brains to grow. And so having that growth mindset allows you to have a higher brain activity. Oh, you guys can't hear the clip, but I can hear it over and over and over again. All right, so the last thing is remembering the intention of the person giving the feedback. What is their purpose? Now, you might think that that person giving your feedback is thinking to themselves, I'm going to tell you you suck because I am better than you and you are garbage. So you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Fix it. But in actuality, especially here at the university, there are no faculty members, no professors, no teachers who are this. I know you might disagree, but there really shouldn't be. Our intent, and I can speak for myself as a faculty member, is really to help you grow, help point out the things that you can make better. And so our intent is to communicate to you, here are some things that you can work on. And so let's go back to me in graduate school. What could I have done better? Well, I could have been more clear, first of all. I could have, when I went into my professor's office and I said, is there any feedback that you can give me about my presentation? When at the time, truly what I wanted was positive feedback. I could have been specific and said, can you tell me what I did right about the presentation, right? If clearly I was feeling that I did nothing right, then I should ask, well, is there something that I did right? I could have primed myself to be excited to get feedback, right? I mean, I went in, I told you in the beginning, I went in really confident and viewed it more as a opportunity to perform, if you will, but not an opportunity to get feedback, which is ridiculous because this was a open discussion on the scientific results that I had gotten. And so of course there should be a dialogue of what does the data mean, right? And so I should have primed myself of saying, this is going to be a great presentation. I'm going to get this great feedback that will allow me to evolve my experiments such that I get even a better result for my project. And then at the end of it all, priming myself again of when I went into my professor's office and asking him, well, can you give me feedback? Being really prepared to get more feedback, to get specific things that I can change. Now, what about my advisor, right? So let's talk now and switch gears about when you are giving feedback. So we've just talked about tools for yourself in life, in particular now as you navigate college, of how do you get feedback. You get a lot of feedback in college, a lot. I mean, right, that's what grades are, like you're constantly getting feedback. But the truth of the matter is you'll be constantly getting feedback for the rest of your life, and you'll have perhaps more opportunities than you have now to give someone feedback. And so how does it occur from the flip side, if you will? Now, I think we can all agree that you don't want to be this guy, right? Or, maybe I should pick there's more females on this that I see in the room. So you guys might be like, I'm not that guy, but, Cruella DeVille or something like, someone evil, just out to make someone feel bad. You don't want to be that person, right? What is your intent? Usually your intent isn't to make someone feel bad. It is to communicate. It is either to boost their energy, right? So someone feels down and you're like, hey, no, you got this, you can do it. Develop a relationship. Usually if you're boosting their energy, maybe you actually want to be their friend or are their friend and want to continue to contribute to that friendship or that community that you're a part of. You want to perhaps raise their self-awareness. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but the simplest one that I don't think as humans do very often, but like, hey, you got something stuck in your teeth? Right there, right? That's feedback, right? And it raises the self-awareness of someone else. But that's even one thing that sometimes you're like, oh, should I tell them they got this really big like spinach thing right there, right? So, so even something like that can be sometimes pretty difficult to do. But most of the time, it's to help them improve their performance. And so we've been figuring out tools now to how do we improve ourselves. Now flipping the script, right? If you're giving feedback, perhaps you want them to improve their performance. Now, I want to backtrack just a slight, because one of the things I forgot to mention too is, let's say you do run into that guy, right? This who just seems to be out to get you, and nothing that comes out of their mouth is positive at all. Well, there are a couple things that you can do. And first and foremost, ask yourself, what is the intent of that person? And if it truly is just to make you feel bad, guess what? Their words mean nothing, right? I mean, there's no improvement that can be made with them just making you feel bad. So forget about them. However, what better revenge, if you will, if you could find something that they said and be like, I can improve that. Okay. Yeah, your intent is bad, but I can still improve that. And I'll let you in on a little secret. The people who are out to make you feel bad are usually doing it because they are insecure themselves. They don't know how to make them still, they don't know how to do, good priming. I'm excited, yay, right? So the only way that they know to make them feel better is to put someone else down. Well, you can imagine that if you actually use their advice, or their not advice, their feedback to make yourself feel better, that it's going to backfire on them, right? You're going to actually even improve more, and they're going to feel a little worse about themselves. So not that we are out for revenge, but this is another thing that adds to that. Okay, so when you're giving feedback, back to you giving payback, I want you to, again, think back, just like we did before, about a coach, maybe or a music teacher, or some mentor that you had that really brought out the best of you. And I love this quote, because really, those people are people who can give correction without resentment, without feeling this angst, if you will, of if you don't fix it, I'm going to be mad, right? How many of you guys ever have given feedback to the point where really you're thinking to yourself, you better change this, because if you do it again, anyone? No? Okay, so maybe it's just us older people, Stephanie. Right, I can say that from, if you're ever in a relationship, sometimes you do feel that way to your significant other. Please, just put the box over here. That's where it goes. Here, right? So, so can you give correction or feedback without that feeling of anxiety, if you will, of if they don't correct it, then it's on you. It's not on you. So now I'm going to read some statements, and I want you to just take a moment and think to yourself, really, really take it in as if I'm speaking to you, and ask yourself, how do they make you feel? Okay. So in fact, so this is the beauty of Zoom. I'm going to actually add some names to this, because I can see some names. Okay. And then we're going to ask the whole group how it made you feel. So Crystal, you have so many typos. It really makes you look careless. Abigail, your manuscript is laden with grammatical errors. Mary, your work is so sloppy. Ian, why did you pace the whole time you presented? Megan, you jump all over the place. I don't even understand what you're trying to say at all. Okay, so thanks for humoring me. I've been using those names. Let me ask, this is where I was doing a poll before, but I can't do that with Zoom. So I'm gonna do it old school. I want everybody to unmute, and I'm gonna ask you to shout out what those statements, how they made you feel.
Lame.
Lame.
Embarrassed.
Good. Embarrassed.
Embarrassed too.
Embarrassed.
Oh.
Say that again.
I think someone else said embarrassed, and I also said small.
Small, insecure, embarrassed, lame, right? None of those are good feelings, right? They all suck. And so really, oh, okay, now I went too much. Now let's clear that plate for a second. And I'm going to read some other statements, and I want you to, again, really absorb them and see how they make you feel. Okay. All right. So Mary, I really liked your use of color in this presentation. That's great. Megan, wonderful explanation of the data. I understood the point and it was very clear. Crystal, that's an interesting conclusion. It really made me think. Let's see, Yin, way to push through those setbacks. Good job. Abigail, your schemes and figures are beautiful. All right, unmute. How do those make you feel?
Great. Or cool.
Cool, great. Proud.
Like there's a direction to move in. Like I know that this went well, so I can do this again specifically.
Great, that's what we're going to touch on again. Steph might little allusion to what we did. Sorry, my mouse is lost. Okay, any other things that you might have felt? Okay, no problem. So those feelings of pride and cool, happiness, that comes from this chemical called dopamine. It is a neurochemical. It allows our brain cells to talk to each other, and it really is the chemical. It's the feel-good chemical, right? It's the one that allows us to feel like, yeah, okay. It also primes us for action. In fact, science has shown that dopamine facilitates learning, motivation, and movement. And so that's really important, right? If you're going to give feedback, you want them to be motivated to move and to learn. And so we talked about this before, priming your brain. We talked about how do you prime yourself. So I didn't say this before because I wanted to save it for this part, but we talked about elevated heart rate, feeling of pent-up energy, this kind of sweatiness, butterflies in our stomach, actually also an increase in dopamine because, right, if you're fearful, you have to be ready to move, right? Our human nature has evolved from back in the day when there was a predator about to eat us. We have to be like, oh my goodness, I have to run, otherwise I'm like gonna be eaten, right? So dopamine primes us for movement. It also primes us for learning, for excitement, for growth. And so we talked about tools just a minute ago on how to prime ourselves. Well, don't make the person getting the feedback do it. Let's help them out. And one way to do that is what we call praise, correct praise. And so the first praise is priming the brain, letting them feel this flux of dopamine so that they're ready to learn and move and they're motivated to do it. Let's think back of, we said, for yourself, check your ego in. If you say to someone, you're all over the place, I don't understand it, here's what you should do, right? If the first thing you said is, you're all over the place, I don't understand, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to feel crappy. They're feeling lame, small, insecure, and they're going to shut down and be defensive. And they're not going to want, or they're not going to be primed, if you will, to actually make the changes. However, if you praise them, then they have all this dopamine and they're feeling good. And then you say, and here's something you can make better. Like, yeah, I'm good and I can be better, right? So prime them to really be able to correct themselves. And so that's the next thing. That's that little piece of, here's what you can do to take it to the next step. I thought this part was good, and here's how you can take it to the next level. Now, if you look at correct in a dictionary, some other words for correct or enhance are heighten, raise, intensify, boost, increase, magnify, improve, strengthen, augment, amplify, all of these things. Nowhere on this list is point out what that person did wrong, right? Nowhere in the correct, let's go back for a second, correct is you did this wrong, right? And this is a misnomer in the sense that when we think of giving corrections, and we get this from ourselves as well too, when we get grades, is, okay, this is what you did wrong. But if really what we're trying to do is help the person get better, it's how do we let them amplify and enhance and grow something that they're already doing correctly. Now, that's not to say the lie, if you will. Find out something that they've done and anchor that. So you want to use something that they've done well, anchor it, and that's your anchor. Provide feedback, that's great. And then how can you increase that effectiveness? How can you take it to the next level? And because if you do, it'll be amazing, or something with a bright future. So if you do this, it'll be even better in the future, because again, we're all looking to grow and evolve in the future. Now, when you do praise, correct praise, and you hear this term a lot, like people will say, never, ever, ever do praise, correct praise. And that's partly because what it can tend to turn into is the poo-filled sandwich. And I use poo, the GE term, or the G term, instead of the R-rated term, because we're being recorded, and I can't say those words. And so think to yourself another word for poop. Oh, I should put an emoji here. Okay, right? Don't do that, right? You don't want to be like, hey, something really great, and then the feedback that you want to give, which is totally different, unrelated to the positive thing that you had, and then bring it back to something else random that's positive. So for example, it's like, oh, I really love your blouse. Your paper was awful, but the shoes look so good with that blouse. I love it. Great outfit. Right? Like, it confuses the person. It's like, wait, you're talking about my outfit? Wait, what? Wait, what? So really the feedback needs to be directly related to both the initial praise and the ending praise. So for example, something like, your voice projection and your presentation was so good. You spoke articulately, and I understood everything you said. Something that might even make something that you might want to do is look at the audience more, direct that really articulate voice that you have towards the audience so they can see, and add your facial expressions to that clear voice. It'll really feel like you're telling them a story, and they're going to love your presentation even more than I already do, right? So your presentation is good. If you change this one more thing, it'll be even better, right? So it primes them to think, okay, I can do this. I can make that correction. And that's really what we want to do. That correction is directly related. Now, the correction, I want to hone in on that, and how much correction can you have? So our brain is, it's been measured. We have a long-term memory and a short-term memory, and the short-term memory is actually really short. It only lasts around 0 to 18 seconds, and we can only have the capacity to hold about 7-ish distinct items in our brain. And that's actually, back in the day, if you ever wonder why we have a 7-digit phone number, which no one remembers anymore because we all have phones, and we're like, okay, what's your phone number? And we know ours, and that's it. Back in the day, and you youngins, we didn't have cell phones, and we actually had to remember everybody's phone number. And so it was measured that the number should be 7 digits, because we can actually remember a 7-digit number. And the reason I bring this up is because we all tend to have this feeling of, when I give feedback, I'm going to give all the feedback that I noticed, right? So again, let's go back to Simone Biles. Let's say I'm her coach and she's doing this tumbling class. And if I tell her, you got to block, you got to twist, arms got to be right by your ear, but make sure your toes are pointed and your legs are straight and your ankles together. Remember, we told you like you're holding a sock in between your ankles. And remember, the twist has to originate from your toes, not your shoulders. And then your head cannot back, otherwise it's going to go back too much and you're going to flip and you're going to land on your head. And then when you land, feet are together, knees bent, absorb it in your knees, take the shock, stand, don't take any steps, make sure you stick it, right? I mean, can anyone repeat what I just said? I can't even repeat what I just said, right? That's too much. So when you're giving correction, we need to give it in small little chunks, because Otherwise, you're going to defeat the purpose of the dopamine priming in the beginning. They're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to be like, oh my goodness. And then it's going to go into that fear mode of, I'm overwhelmed. I can't correct it all. But if little chunks, okay, I can do that, right? You can only really correct one or two things at a time, right? We don't want to create information overload because then we're stuck in this loop of I can't do anything. So here's a little exercise of how many things we can remember at a given time. I want everybody to take 1 minute exactly and try to remember every letter in this cloud. I'm going to give you a minute. All right. Okay. Who would like to unmute and tell me all the letters that they saw? I think there are 23 letters. And this is where the professor who now teaches on Zoom is going to come out. I'm going to cold call you and you're going to tell me all the letters that you saw. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. Right? The fact that nobody unmuted makes me deduce that, or conclude, excuse me, that no one could do all 23. If I am incorrect, and you know all 23, but don't want to unmute and make everybody else feel less than, then just you're like, oh yeah, I got it. I had all 23. Anyone? Okay. Well, here they are again. And so 23 letters, very, it's more than 7, right? More than 7. We said our brains can only hold in our short-term memory 7. Now, if I gave you a week, for sure, you'd be able to do this, right? You take little flashcards and you'd be able to do this. Another way I could do this is rearrange the letters to make words. And these are the letters: doctorate, graduate, career. Now, if I went back, how many of you could tell me all the letters or all the words that I gave you? Raise show of hands. Yes, right? 3 is much more, thank you, is much more manageable than 23. And so our brains can only hold certain, so if you're thinking to yourself, but I've been able to take feedback in, a lot of feedback in, or a lot of information at one time, it's really because you were able to group them, right? It wasn't this, then this, then this. It was, this is a group, that's one. This is another group, that's another. And so that's how you were able to do it. So as a summary, when you're giving feedback, you really want to anchor the things that you valued, that was good. Provide examples. I really liked how you did this. You were clear. The red on this picture is very vibrant. How it impacted you, how it made you feel, what did you think? And then you can ask, you can make suggestions. And the important thing is, whatever you want to change, make it in the past, as if it's never going to happen again, right? How many of you ever gotten feedback that started with, you always do this? You always, right? If someone says, right, you always put the box over there, right? Does that then why are they giving you feedback? They already know that you always do it. So you can't change because you always do it, right? So put the unwanted behavior in the past. You've done this, but I know in the future you're going to do this. Okay? So that you believe that they can change. And I actually did the faux pas. I said the word but, right? No, don't say but, right? That is the classic backhanded compliment. You're like, but, right, I believe in you, but this could change. Like, you've just negated the good stuff that you've just said. So avoid the use of saying but. Now, what about if you're in a team or a community? So before, it was like kind of a more one-on-one, of which those type of interactions you're still going to get if you're on a team. But if you're vested in a team or a community or a group that you see many times, a way to enhance feedback is contributing to the emotional bank account. And so by being, this should be common sense, right? Being kind, courteous, keeping your word, and because that's going to make the people you're around trust you, and the people you're around have you trust them. And so that is actually really conducive to high performance. In fact, science has shown that the more positive that if you give 5 more positive comments to every criticism, that the overall team's performance, where's my mouse? There it is. Team's performance is much, much higher than if you don't give any positive feedback. And so that's like laying the groundwork for the intent. Now, because sometimes it's really hard to think to yourself, okay, how do I anchor this, right? The praise, correct, praise sandwich. Sometimes it's difficult to think to yourself, okay, how do I put this in that neat little package? However, if you're part of a community, part of a team, that underlying praise, that underlying trust, that underlying good intent is already there. So you might be able to get away with, okay, I'm just going to give you this this little piece right here, but because we've been part of this community, I've already contributed, right? The praise that I've already contributed to the priming, if you will. You believe that from me, I have your best interest at heart, and what I'm saying is simply to help you grow. Okay? So that's an added. I've gotten a lot of this information from a lot of different sources. This is a particular talk that I found on the web that had some of the information of which I added to. So Stephanie will have that if you're interested in seeing that. This, as far as I understand, this presentation is recorded. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that, let's go back, that you can see it again and again. I'm not sure, but Steph is nodding, so that's scary. So I guess if you wanted to see it again, you could. But with that, I want to open the floor to you, in that I would absolutely love and welcome all of the feedback that you have for me and this presentation. But maybe the feedback is anonymous and you can turn it in to Stephanie. So last time what I did was pass out note cards that you guys could fill out and Steph could collect and give to me. I think there's a way that Steph is going to be able to ask for feedback. So just basically, my ending message to you is please give me feedback, and maybe practice the correct praise, or praise correct praise sandwich.
There is a way to provide feedback. The link is in the chat box here. It's also on the education series page. As you all have attended this in the live session on Zoom, I already have your attendance information, and so you don't have to identify yourself in that feedback